willing to tell you the spiel, because I think all of you have been here before. And I will thank you all for coming today. And this is our 6th of the series of 12. I'm really wondering if I should be saying that in case it only makes it to 10 or something. No. But we're going to try. We're going to keep going. But it's really nice to have Martin and Isabelle with us today. And so I'm just going to read their bios, because you know the idea of how all this works and what this is all about. And then they'll begin. And I think they're just going to do kind of going back and forth, and they'll decide when to take a break, and we'll take a break as usual, and then we'll come back to it. And as you know, there's food. We have arroz con pollo today, beans and salads, and so anyway, we'll be well fed. And of course, as usual, feel free to get up and get, something to drink and so on. So, we've got Martin Durazo here, who is a multifaceted practice, encompasses sculpture, painting, collage, photography, drawing, video, performance, and installation. The work engages elements of high design, shamanism, I love that you put that in there, and the aesthetic of illicit social subcultures. He is known for creating large-scale installations combining painting, sculpture, ready-made objects, video, sound, light, and performance. Martin was born in East Los Angeles to a butcher father and a factory worker mother who divorced shortly after his birth. He was raised in Echo Park by a bilingual mother who worked full-time and cared for by an English-speaking babysitter, which means that he was only able to understand Spanish and speak English. So that's his excuse. I only see it as an excuse. Throughout his youth, Martin was always attracted to cinema. He was introduced to films like Apocalypse Now, Cruising, and Taxi Driver, to name a few. These seminal works awoken an awareness of the gritty side of humanity, yet an appreciation of the beauty of its unrelenting spirit. The culmination of film and music is still evident in his practice as an artist. You have many accolades. I'm only going to go through a few. Martin earned his Bachelor of Arts degrees in English and Art from Pittsburgh College, Claremont, participated in Boston University's London internship program, and received a Master of Fine Arts from UCLA. And he has exhibited in such spaces as the Barbara Davis Gallery in Houston, C24 Gallery in New York, Luisa Jesus in Los Angeles, CB1 Gallery, Mark Moore Gallery, Suzanne Filmenter Gallery, MDF in Mexico City, White Box in New York, and et cetera, et cetera. Yes, I do like this part that Durazo co-directed, which is a good thing to remember, the Miller-Durazo Contemporary Artist Projects, right? An artist-run initiative from 1995 to 2003, and in 2007 created Empathy Design Company, a temporary curatorial artist project, which is very cool. And currently, Martin's work can be seen in a 2-person show with Cody Paloma called Awoken at House, an alternative space located in West Los Angeles, through June 26th. So, welcome Martin Durazo. We have Isabelle Lutterodt here as well, who works as an artist and a curator. As so many artists, we wear many hats. Her work engages in forgotten narratives, erasure, and the transcendent power of hope. Her current work includes a series of meditations. Isabelle received an MFA in photography from California Institute of Arts, Valencia, California, and an MA in Art Museum and Gallery Studies from the University of Leicester in Leicester, UK. Am I saying it right? Leicester, thank you. Prior to moving to the UK, she curated as part of the collective Mule, M-U-L-E, exhibitions throughout the Los Angeles area focused on cultural and community-based issues. Isabelle is the director of Barnsdall Art Park and the Los Angeles Municipal Art Gallery for the City of Los Angeles. She formerly served as the director of visual arts at Angels Gate Cultural Center in San Pedro, California, and has curated exhibitions that focus on weaving local histories with community engagement and collaborations. In her practice, Isabelle is currently working on a new addition to the meditation series for a forthcoming show later this year, which we'll elaborate on, as well as working on publishing a book, very cool, titled Erasure Agitation, about the history of John Brown and Frederick Douglass. Welcome, Isabelle Lutterodt.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. I think Isabelle and I chatted briefly as to how we're going to structure today's talk, and I'm still not sure how we're going to do this, but we're going to do it anyway. I think I'm going to talk a little bit about myself first and introduce you to the work if you're not that familiar with the trajectory of the last. Hey, you guys. Sorry, I still have my teacher hat on from this morning, so I guess I'll just jump right into it, and then Isabelle will talk a little bit about her work, and then I guess we're going to talk about what it feels like to juggle cats, being artists and organizers and educators, which I'm sure I'm surrounded by a bunch of in this room right now, so we'll just commune together. So anyway, you heard what Lisa had to say about my worship and this idea of my influences coming from childhood, and being exposed to these really awesome films when I was really young, and I owe that to a crazy uncle who introduced me to these films. When I was really young, I'm talking like 10, 12 years old, and seeing Apocalypse Now when it was first in the theater and kind of going like this, and a year or two later telling my mom, we've got to go see this movie Cruising because there's some punk rock music in it, and finding out that it had to do with the underground gay leather scene in New York City, and then of course Taxi Driver. Again, more of like, I guess I should attribute it more to growing up in the punk rock scene in LA. Again, at a very young age, like my best friend's older brother, who was 3 or 4 years older, was into it. And of course, we thought it was the most amazing thing. So there we are at 12 years old, trying to sneak in and get into Dead Kennedy shows and the Black Flag shows. So this idea of being out in the dark in a place like LA, and if you guys remember LA in the very early 80s, we're talking 1980, things were rough, even going to Hollywood was rough, and rougher than it is now. It's still not perfect, but everything's gentrifying. I'm sure we're all very aware of that. So, I don't know, I guess I grew up with this Scorsese-esque mentality about the beauty of all this happening. So as this carried on through my young life and going into education and starting to lean towards art, I think I just gravitated towards that, what I've kind of coined before in other talks is the aesthetic of the illicit. What does it look like to be out at night? What does it look like to be around this spirituality of being intoxicated or have some kind of spiritual intoxicant, and how do we do that? Where do we get it from? It doesn't necessarily have to be the usual, drugs and alcohol, but even we as artists kind of get to this other place by making our work. So I try to mash that all together, these ideas of desire and fear and being cavalier, and just going ahead and just going after things and seeing what that looks like. And I'm still trying to find it. So in no particular order, I'm going to show you some works that span, the last 16, 17 years. And I'll jump right in by showing you this image. This is a still from a video called Axioms and Ecstasies that I presented at the Satellite Show in Miami this past December. And with the place that I'm showing with now, it's called House. It's an artist-run initiative. I don't know if you guys have been there before. Ichiro Irie's presented this really great place for artists to do experimental works. And we've known each other for some time. And he asked me to be the artist for House at this fair. And so I created this video with this concept of using the word axiom, this usually used in mathematics, this given truth that you start working from. And my axiom was the idea of non-representation in abstraction, and that the untrained eye or the unknowing eye, when confronted with the idea of abstraction, is automatically to try to find an image in the abstraction. So I played with that image by filming. I got a group of friends together and I said, look, I'm going to film you in this nightclub type lighting, and then alter the film and basically create an abstraction. However, as you watch the film and it transverses through different color fields, it becomes evident that there are naked bodies in it. And that becomes the ecstasy, where it was just almost like a social experiment to have viewers come in and look at basically pretty colors on a screen. But as they watched it, then they would see something. And then just as quickly, it'd be fleeting. So all of a sudden there was this axiom that there's no representation. However, boom, maybe you saw something, maybe you didn't. And so all of a sudden, I'd have couples come in and especially married couples were the most fun. They'd come in and the wives would be like, oh, this is beautiful. And husbands were like, oh.
And then as soon as
and you'd see a flip where the husbands would be like, this is really good. This is fantastic, honey. And of course it was the other way around, like, we should go. No, we definitely got to go. We've got a lot of things to see today. But, honey. So anyway, so that was kind of this thing, and I created this video. It had no sound to it, so I was able to integrate my own playlist. So basically, I was in the space DJ music all day, which isn't uncommon for installations that I've created. Sometimes I'll be in there DJing, or I'll have guest DJs. When I was presenting an installation at the Mark Moore Gallery, I had maybe 2 months before had read this Los Angeles Magazine article about the new porn, and there was, at the center of this article was a young Sasha Grey, who was this, brilliant, well-read, cultured person doing pornography. I'm like, it seems kind of like, right in where I kind of want to find my aesthetic. So I reached out to her agent. I said, hey, can I have, Sasha come and DJ my installation? So he put me in touch with her. She was willing to do it. She came out. And again, it was the same kind of construct. People came and they're like, oh, this is kind of a cool installation, blah, blah, blah. And again, the married couples come in and the wife's like, oh, well, this is really fascinating. Husbands are like, oh, God, I want to watch the... Is that? She looks very familiar, and the wife's like, really, from where? Never mind. we gotta go. So anyway, I'm just bringing that in because as an anecdote for the music. So I'm gonna move on, and so I don't know if you guys can just take a look at this image. There we go. Anybody see anything in this image?
It's so pretty.
Thank you. Thank you.
I don't see anything in it.
Okay.
Hey, is that
Yeah. Yes, it is. It's a shot that I created from. I have a balcony in my studio, and right below it is a hot tub, and I have all these lights, and so I had a group of people in there, but they're kind of. You'll see at the very end. I'll have one so that you can see a little better. So I'm going to move on. Okay. Yeah. Maybe everybody stick around. It's like sort of food, don't you? Okay. This is something I did a little early in the year. Like I said, I'm not going to do anything in any particular order. This is an installation that I was asked to do for a space in Puerto Rico. And, you know, if it involves travel, I'm in. I'm a total travel slut. You know, the curator says, hey, yeah, okay. So I work with this curator named Rose Zamudio out of New York. And currently he's taking this piece to a show in Norway. And he's just like, hey, I just got this sent back to me. Can I take it? I'm like, yeah, go ahead. I wish you could take me, but the work's fun. Again, I make the work very often, and then I'll kind of look at it and let it tell me the story. And very rarely do I go forward with this title and then I create the work. You know, it's really hard to do. So this one's called The Duality of Man. Again, speaking to this, the two sides of who we are. You know, the festivity, the light side, the dark side. And so I created these pieces of paper that I have, these metallic kind of foil-like papers, and I'm very into this idea of reflection, trying to figure out who we are, trying to figure out our boundaries. And so then there are these little pieces of fragmented images that I placed in there. And on top of it all, I went, and I'm sure the space wasn't very happy about it, but I was painting on top of it. You'll see the marks there with those pig's feet at the bottom. So I went to, I don't know if these things right here are pig's feet. So I went to a local, you know, market, and of course, you know, in Puerto Rico, they're looking at me like, yeah, you're gonna do what? And I was like, well, I'm gonna paint with them. And they, okay. Which was only half as bad as the look that I got when I got back to the space, and then told the director, so yeah, I'm gonna paint with these pig's feet, and I'm gonna leave them here. And like, for how long? You know, until you can't stand it. You know? So anyway, I'm just want to run through it. So if anybody has any questions about it, we can talk a little bit. This is a commission that I received from the Metro Authority 2 years ago called Vamos Juntos, and it just means going places together. Again, I was really excited about getting this commission because as a kid, even going to those punk rock shows at 12 years old, I was riding the bus to get to them. And so I presented this work, and I was really shocked again because it was abstract work. Everything else at the station and most of MTA's work is either some kind of representational painting or photographs or something like that. I was really surprised and really happy that they were willing to commission these abstract works. And as I tell it to people, even my abstractions are influenced, or should I say, even a captured representation of the lighting strobes that you see in nightclubs, and more that energy of like trace energy of when you're looking at a light and you close your eyes, and that's what I kind of go through with these pieces. And you'll see it if another painting comes up. What you have here, though, is a little bit of an intersection of the practice of doing these installations and of the painting. This is one of my most recent paintings that's at house right now. This piece is called The Pharmacoi, and it's a very light painting of almost, I don't know, an inverted rainbow of sort, or just a diluted one. And then I have this macrame hanging on it, and then now I've incorporated these, what would you call them? The sliced agate.
Oh, from the
Geo, yes, yeah. And I, again, having painted a lot of these things with just layers of intense color and fluorescence, here I'm kind of trying to like experiment with toning it down and seeing where my influences are. So by adding actual objects onto my canvas, now I'm kind of combining my installation work and with the two-dimensional works. Here you have the pharmacoi. It's this Greek reference to something that could either be a poison or it could be a remedy. Again, another piece from the show. Like I said, I'm sorry I didn't put these in order. I should put them towards the end. But this one's called the pharmacons. Okay. Again, that idea of experimenting with the idea of something that can be a remedy or a poison, but also a sacrifice. So here I have like this little makeshift altar piece that could, I don't know, be an offering, be something that something could happen at, but yet sculptural. And then I don't know if you can see it from the slide, there is some kind of like disco light under it. So it has two different lights. So, if you turn out the lights in the gallery, the entire gallery kind of like explodes with color, because not only is this little disco light going on, it's being filtered through the crochet blanket. Going back, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, I was working with this idea of how impossible a situation of living within narco trafficking and countries that are trying to survive despite like this impossible situation. And I kind of came across this, having read this book by Mark Goblin called Killing Pablo, and it was all about the rise and fall of Pablo Escobar and how he coined the phrase plata o plomo, and it stuck out. And I was like, that saying, which it just means, I can either bribe you or I can kill you. But to me, plata o plomo, as an artist, I understood exactly what it meant, but it was also this idea of an aesthetic. Again, these colors, this kind of like dead metal looking thing, lead thing, or a shiny, silvery thing. So I went with that as an aesthetic and created the show for Rio Hondo College. I actually created 2 different exhibitions, one for CV1 gallery, and that was the original Plata o Plomo exhibition. But this one I thought was a little more interesting to show you guys, that I did for Robert Miller at Rio Hondo. By the way, the gallery I had was with Robert Miller, who's now the director there. We're still very good friends, so gave me a show. So this was still more of an object-based show. I think there was one painting in the show, but for the most part, I used and was using insulation panels as a surface. A while back, I think, 6-7 years ago, Rudolf Stengel did this installation for the Whitney Museum where he had people just carve and kind of graffiti into this surface, and I thought, God, that's an amazing, aesthetic. So I appropriated it, not necessarily doing the same thing, but using it as a surface, because I thought of it again as more of that lead-looking thing that looks very metallic, but yet is very, delicate, easily damaged. And so that for me became like this human-like art material to use, considering this subject. So you see it throughout. And then again, with the, if you see in the back, I used 2 sheets of plexiglass mirror for the plomo piece, where people had that word, in their face. And then yet the reflection of where are you at in this chain that kind of feeds this industry of narco-drug trafficking. And then this was back in 2013. Again, this kind of lends itself back to where we started. This was an installation piece I did for Luis de Jesus. The show was called Points of Entry. And this kind of harkened back to that conversation about cruising. And so I'd always wanted to create this installation that was a miniature nightclub. So this became my miniature nightclub / leather club / punk club / rave. And so it was all these different things. So you have like these sex paddles, these I don't know, I think the fur was attached to like butt plugs, and so, but it was still all, everything that I selected was very aestheticized to what I like in terms of colors and just formal qualities. It was very nondescript in terms of what the objects were that you were looking at. They just had a certain kind of, stylized look. So This was fun. This was on the inside or the second gallery. You walked into the gallery, and hopefully one of the paintings is next. Oh, I'll talk about him in a second. You walked into the gallery, and there were, in the first gallery were all these large abstract paintings. This one was 9 by 12 feet. The other ones were all 9-foot paintings that were basically kind of copying these light strobes that were going on in the club. And so you walked through the space, you went to this big black box, and then once you walked inside, you had a different register because there was music in it, things were reflecting, the light strobes were happening, and then when you came back out, you had a different affect with the paintings. You look and like, oh, okay, now I kind of see what's going on, rather than just big, colorful, abstract paintings. So, I threw him in that this is my, I should say I'm his adopted uncle, and I threw him in there. My neighbor's dog, his name is Rock, so I did this little piece next to him. I don't know why I put it in there. It just felt like I should have a picture of my studio, and there it is. So anyway, this is one of those paintings that was included in that show. It was called Slayer, and it was more about the band Slayer and the energy that kind of is created when you go to one of their shows. And so it's just more about trying to capture the movements that happen within, that. I don't know if you've ever been to any kind of like punk show or metal show, and you see people, you probably, if you haven't been, you've actually probably seen it in the news, but no? Yes? Okay, good. And so I don't know, see everybody looking at me like, what's he talking about? So there are these things, they're called shows.
I've been there.
Okay, good.
Trust me.
So again, like I said, I grew up in this scene, and it was fascinating to me to see, hundreds of people, or depending on if it was a small show, even like 50 people just crammed into a small space and just throwing themselves at each other, jumping off stages, and I'm sure normal people would think that's stupid, that's really crazy. But as a kid growing up in it, I was like, this is amazing. Like I've never seen anything like this before. So I don't know what I think I'm still processing it. I'm a middle-aged man. I'm still processing what I saw back then. So here it is. I'm trying to like.
It still goes on.
Yeah, it still happens, and maybe I'm a little older now because I look at it and go, yeah, that's stupid. I go to see a concert. I'm like, where can I sit down? So anyway, so that's Slayer. Going back again, I keep on going back and forth. I was asked by my school, how would you refer to the school? Alma mater, thank you. Pitzer College, and they were having their 50-year Jubilee anniversary, and Kira Ennis, the director of the Pitzer Art Galleries out there, reached out to me and said, look, you're the guy. It's going to be 50 years. Can you do an installation and somehow keep in mind your experience at Pitzer? This wasn't it. No. I wish I had a dorm room that looked like this. So basically that's what it was. I came up with this idea of how could I create a hyper-realized dorm room that kind of encapsulated my experience of being 18 again, and these intersecting energies of having grown up in the punk scene, and then, now in the late 80s, the rave culture was just barely starting out, and then of course, Holly will know, Pitzer was very much a hippie school. We went to the same school. So it was very much a hippie school. It was Grateful Dead all the time, every day, all the time. And at first, I was going, what is wrong with these kids? They have these shoes on, So many. You gotta remember, I came from growing up in East LA and Echo Park and going to punk shows. I wore boots, and all these kids are in Birkenstocks, and if they had anything on. And but after a while, I kind of caught on, like, hey, this no shoe thing is kind of cool. So I did all this. I created this installation with macrame, and but then at the same time, there was punk music playing, and all kinds of things kind of came together, and if you get a chance when we're done talking, I did bring a catalog from that show if you want to look at all the images. It was a lot of fun to do, and I guess according to Kira, the most popular show they had ever had. She said that she had never experienced anything like it, where kids, the students would actually come and study in the gallery because it was so comfortable. You'd have kids, sitting in the beanbag, the chairs on top of the futon, plugging in their phones, playing music. She said she smelled, certain things emanating. So it was quite, the experience. And a lot of fun. This was 2 years ago? Yeah, a year and a half ago. Yeah. So there you go. Okay, so I'm going to leave it this. I think you can actually see at the back of the head there. So I didn't want to
I do.
incriminate anybody in the photos, but yeah, again, going back to this thing, this energy, this place of reverie and trying to create spirituality. So I'm going to stop there. I'm not going to show that video. Maybe later on if it comes up. Yeah? You guys, do you mind? Okay. So I escape out of this?
Yeah, you go escape, and then it should be there behind that.
Okay.
It's already up, it's just be.
Oh wait, there's 2 more images. Hold on. I'll just show you this real quick. But part of my aesthetic is that I also believe in this idea of modularity. I'm very lucky right now. I have an obnoxiously large studio, so I can do all kinds of things. But that hasn't always been the case. So I was able to do these installations based on this idea of modularity and breaking down things and putting them in boxes and building them basically at the place. So this was part of the Plato Plomo exhibition, and I showed them in this was the only piece that I showed them. The first one and the second one. This one is called Descat, which is a pre-Columbian signifier for the tribes that wear these shiny stones on their chest that were polished to be mirror-like. And the idea was that as warriors, if they wore that and they ran up on their adversaries would see their own reflection and immediately give up, feeling that their souls were already captured. And so I gave this title to this piece.
Did you say the title of it?
Descat.
Descat.
And I don't know, this piece has just always stuck with me because the aesthetic is 2 things, well 3 things. There's the title, which is this idea of this mirror, something that's capturing your soul. And 2, one of my favorite childhood learning tools / toys were these interlocking pieces, these plastic pieces. So as an adult, I recreated these with the aesthetic of what would be a surface for cocaine. So basically these are interlocking cocaine mirrors. And the idea of something that's already captured your soul before you've even started. So, and then this painting is called The Lovers, and again, very much like something that captures your soul. I go back into this idea of passion, something that I guess that's the way that I would create a balance between this idea of the aesthetic of the illicit, these things that are dangerous, these things that get you high, and I equate it with this idea of being in a love relationship, taking that chance of it getting a hold of you and being in control of you, and you're okay with it, and you know that it might not be the best thing for you, and you do it anyway, just for the experience. So those are the images. I'm going to indulge myself, and I'm going to share one little video with you. This is going way back to 2002. We were talking about Otis a couple minutes ago. Oh yeah, you remember this? You remember this show? I was just out of UCLA for a couple years, and I guess, how do I make this bigger?
So go to view.
View.
And
Okay, I gotta click on this. There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got it now.
There you go.
So, in 2002, well, I graduated UCLA in '98, but before that, and concurrent with my education there, I was living in the building where Post don't know if you guys remember, Post as an exhibition space was. And I was showing there and a couple of other places before I got into UCLA. And then Ann Ayers, who was this really great director of the galleries over at Otis, liked what I was doing in terms of my ready-made objects and assemblages that I was doing that got me into UCLA. And so she asked me after I graduated, she says, will you come inaugurate the new Ben Maltz Gallery, which those of you who've been there is a big, beautiful space. And so I was the first person who had a solo show there. So I'm going to show that to you. It's from 2002, and then I'll be quiet for a little bit. Yeah, I think it's good. I can go back.
Because I felt like there was the introduction was gone.
Okay. I'll go all the way up. Yeah, I know, I can do this better. There's got to be a better way. There we go, that's what I'm looking for. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let me explain real quick. The show was called Fresh Air 100. Again, it was like, I want to say almost like a race. You know, thinking about life as a race. And you know, there's all these sayings like, you know, life is a marathon, it takes forever. And I was, you know, thinking about this proposition that it is a race, and it's in like 3 parts. You know, we get started and we're trying to kind of get through our childhood, and it's a race. Like I can't wait until I grow up. Then all of a sudden you grow up and you're like, oh shit, I gotta accomplish, and all this noise happens, and then you do all your partying and you just try to get it in, and then you try to hold on going, oh, how much longer can I party? I don't know. And at a certain point you're like, I just can't do this anymore. I gotta sit down. So then there's the 3rd part, and you'll see it. So this is broken up into 3 parts, and it's just this huge installation that I created. And just as an aside, that deck that you saw, I had already thought about. Otis was nice enough, they gave me a budget, so I'm like, well, I'm going to create a deck. So when I'm done with this show, I can put a deck in my house. So you'll see all these things at one point or another were in my house, including the 3,000 condoms that the Center for Disease Control gave me to make this artwork. So, not that I use them. So, if you want me to talk through it a little bit, okay. This is, I don't know if I call this piece rain or something corny like that, but it's, as you can see, it's a paper shredder that was making long piles of stuff. And there's the deck, kind of leading on to this whole exhibition. And those things that you saw on the wall, you'll see in a second right here, they're heating pads. And the piece was called Give. So you actually would walk up to it and lean against it and get warmed up before you actually created or started really looking at the art. And throughout these things, I created these like mosaic things with these condoms, and they were all called, there were 3 of them, they were called Life. The first one was Life Tilted. And then one is called Life Mirror, which is kind of a rectangle, and then there's the last one, which was Life Line. And then this is a little meditation shed that I created, which was interesting. Meg Cranston would bring the class in every week, and she conducted class in this meditation shed for the run of the show. But it being illicit, I also created little peepholes so you could spy on people, like kind of like a peep show / sex show.
You got that quick. Way too quick.
So this was like a little command center, a little DJ studio. I would have students sign up to come DJ at lunch, and there was a theremin. I had videos that I had created with students that I had. I had a seminar during the run of the show, so we created videos I showed during this time. They could bring in their own videos to also show at the same time. So there'd be groups of students coming in and playing music and screening videos and even creating performances during that time. So that's the lifeline piece. And so it's like this bittersweet exhibition where at the end you kind of flatline. Yeah, that was the other thing that Anne was very excited about the space. Oh, it's so beautiful that architects have, skylights and blah, blah, blah. And first thing I did was, well, I need a wall here. I need to cover the skylight. And she goes, what's going on? I said, well, I'm a firm believer that architecture hates art.